Hi, Global Kids. This is Mrs. Hebert,
Hi everyone, Miss Hanovich here.
and we are here to give you your lesson for Tuesday, May 12th. And your to-do list for today, it's very short. All you got to do is listen to this screencast. You're going to fill out this exit ticket Google form that's attached here. We'll show it to you at the end. And that's it for today.
Yeah, you'll have a note sheet too if you guys want to do. You can totally do it.
Hmm.
And file it in your drive. And we have a lot of aims to answer, so we're gonna go over quite a bit of knowledge. But the fun news is all of this is really interesting.
It is. It is. And I know I say this every week, but it would be so much better if we could do this in person.
Oh my gosh, it so would be. But if you have any questions or want I guess any direction as to what to research, maybe if you do find it interesting, you let us know. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool
Exactly.
stuff. Okay, so we are going to study this man in the middle here. He's like right by the church door. He seems to be pointing to a piece of paper.
It's a very
Um,
big piece of paper.
yeah, it's huge. Looks like there's a lot of writing on there.
Yeah, it looks like he really wants to bring people's attention to it.
And he's probably one of the most important dudes in history. So we're definitely gonna talk about him all day.
Right.
Okay, so that dude is Martin Luther, and he actually brings about something called the Protestant Reformation.
Do
And
you,
if you break it down, it actually makes sense.
it does. Yeah. So usually if we were in the classroom, Miss Hanovich and I would put this word on the board, Protestant Reformation, and we would have you circle the words that you see within the words. And
Hmm.
hopefully you would circle the word protest, but then you would also circle the word reform. And if you look at the definition of both of those words, that's exactly what the Protestant Reformation was.
Hmm. And even Protestant, which I know a lot of you guys have talked about. We talked about Catholic faith and Christianity and Protestants. If you just take the word Protestant, it basically means it was a protest against the faith at the time. So that's where that religion comes from. It was like a source of protest against the majority faith, which was the Catholic Church.
Right. And anytime we want to reform something, we want to try to change it, but always make it better.
Exactly. All right. So, what caused this Protestant Reformation? What causes this change? Well, we were just coming off the Renaissance, or it's during the Renaissance, where we had that humanism thought, where you're questioning church authority. You're putting more emphasis on humans, human spirit, and not so much spiritual things, right? We have more secular emphasis on
Mm-hmm.
arts and writings.
Right. And we've also got those monarchs that were that they were getting more and more powerful by kind of putting these people who were calling out the church, supporting them, getting behind them.
Because remember, that was always an issue. The church was super powerful, and a lot of leaders and kings and queens and nobles and lords were kind of jealous. They wanted more power than the church, so that's gonna be a part of this Reformation.
Right.
All right, so what's the spark? I guess what
Right.
is it that changes everything? One, two, three.
Right. Why do people start calling out the church? Why do people start having problems with the church? One of the biggest issues that people had, besides the church being really, really wealthy, was that the church was getting their wealth from charging people for indulgences. So an
Ooh.
indulgence would be like a get out of jail free card, kind of like a you would pay, you would sin and then go to the church and say that you sinned, and you would pay a little fee and your sin would be completely forgiven.
Or sometimes maybe, let's say your mom passed away or something, right? You would go to the church and say, I would like to buy indulgences for all of my mother's sins to make sure she's in heaven and waiting for me when I get there.
Hmm.
So you were able to buy it for even family members too. But it had nothing to do with good deeds. It just depended on if you had the money to buy them.
Right, exactly. So people began questioning this, and going back to our picture,
Hmm.
this issue with indulgences was really brought to light by Martin Luther.
There's an example of an indulgence. So here it is. This is what it looked like. It's literally a piece of paper where it just says that if you look on the bottom of the translation, in authority of all the saints and out of compassion, I absolve you. I forgive you from all of your sins and misdeeds and remit punishment for 10 days, right? So it's just that easy, according to the Catholic Church. All you gotta
Right,
do is pay some money, and all your sins or some of your sins are forgiven.
right. And
Um,
again, so for those of you who are Catholic, or you do go to a Catholic church, we have that sacrament, right? The sacrament of
Yep, confession.
reconciliation. Yeah,
Hmm.
confession. So if you do go to confession, you list some of your sins, and usually the priest will tell you, all right, say 10 Hail Marys, or give you some sort of thing that you have to do to get your forgiveness from the church. So this idea of like paying money for forgiveness or for a ticket to heaven was it's pretty crazy that this is what was happening.
Yeah, and Martin Luther is like, what in the world? He definitely hates indulgences. His whole big thing was, why are only the rich forgiven? That doesn't seem fair. Like,
Right.
Martin Luther's a monk. He reads through the Bible. He sees nothing about indulgences. In fact, it talks about, a lot about the poor and having compassion and pity for the poor. And he's saying, well, that's not fair. These poor people can't afford indulgences, and you're going to say they can't go to heaven?
Right.
What? Right? So he takes a big stand against everybody who's really selling indulgences.
Hmm. And just so that we can make sure that you know Martin Luther, here's a few funny memes for you guys can
Memes.
look at. Yeah.
I love them. So what is he going to do to really, like, I was gonna put the final nail in the coffin, but that was like a little on the nose. So he literally writes all of his complaints against the church.
Right.
And in a power move, goes to a Catholic church and literally nails them to the door of the Catholic church.
Hmm.
Um,
And the Catholic Church was like the place to be at this
right.
point in history. So this was a good way of like, you nail this to the church and you know that everybody is going to see it. Everybody is going to walk up to it and want to read it and see what he is complaining about.
In one of the videos we recommend, they say that like the church door back in the day was like a bulletin board. It's like what the villagers, I guess, would go and look at, to see what's new, what's happening. So all of a sudden, if you look at that picture, it's huge, right?
Right.
So he puts this up there, and he starts inviting people to debate with him about it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, this is awesome. So some of his main ideas in his bulletin or his thesis is that salvation can only be granted by God and not the church. So you're not gonna like it doesn't matter how much you pay. You're not gonna get to yourself. It's all about the church.
Mm-hmm. That the Bible is really where you should get your faith from, where you should read it and I guess learn how to be a good Christian. Not the Pope. The Pope shouldn't be telling you what to do. You should read the Bible and read the actual word.
Right. And going off of that, also everybody is equal. The priests are not above the people, above the followers. So that was another point that he made.
Which is funny because when we talk about Christianity, when we first found it, right, something that was so attractive about it was the fact that everyone was equal in the religion.
Right.
But as years and years goes on, that equality is lost, and Martin Luther wants to bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason
my
why,
favorite.
yeah, this becomes so popular is because of invention you learned about last class, right? It's the printing press.
Right. So this is what's really going to get people to read, right? Because you learned about that last week when you looked at that document on the printing press. So now that people could read, if you were walking by the church and you did see this big poster advertising all these complaints against the church, you could actually read it and know what the complaints are instead of somebody else having to read it to you and maybe interpret it the wrong way because you couldn't read it for yourself. So this is huge.
Yep, big deal. It spreads super quickly now.
Right.
So here are the responses to it. The people are all about it. They love this idea that they don't have to be super wealthy to get into heaven. But the church is not a fan. They fear him, they threaten him because the church realizes they're going to lose power because of this. And so they excommunicate him.
Right.
Which means they kick him out of the Roman Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
But because of Martin Luther, we're going to get a lot more new religious groups, and one of the I guess like predominant ones are going to be called Lutherans, right? Or like
Martin
Lutherans.
Luther.
Mm-hmm. And there's like a whole bunch of like their beliefs, I guess. One of the big ones is that they're leading services in German. Like they're going to do more vernacular. They're not going to just rely on certain languages. They're going to kind of spread it around for everybody.
Right.
And basically, Protestants is going to be the new term that applies to Christians who are not Catholic. So if you look at the next slide, like the next diagram, you can see we talked about this a lot. Everybody listed here is considered Christian, but you can see the different splits in the church. So you see it goes into Christianity, and then you have either Eastern Orthodox, Roman Catholic, or Protestant.
Which
and
then has its own, yeah.
you have its own splits.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, so these are all of the, like, if you're driving around, especially Protestant or Lutheran, Catholic, you'll drive around and you can see these different churches. They're still most of these are still around today here in America.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So these are just some recommended video clips that you all can watch on your own after the screencast.
Definitely that last one's really good. It's a cartoon.
Yeah.
Okay, so real quick, we are going to talk about King Henry VIII. He's a pretty crazy dude. So we know Martin Luther weakens the church's power. King Henry VIII takes it and does way more damage to it. So if you go to the next one, you got a few more memes you can look at if you want.
All about Henry VIII.
Yeah, bottom right, it's that new musical about his wives, which is pretty cool. Okay, so King Henry VIII, he's like he's like a Tudor, which is like the family dynasty. He becomes a king of England, and he is a super devout Catholic, very dedicated to his religion. The Pope loves him. They call him the defender of the faith. He marries someone very, very Catholic, and that wife is Catherine. But the issue is Catherine only gives him a daughter, and that's it. She can't get pregnant anymore. And so the issue is there's no son. And if there's no son, we
no
can't
heir.
All the power in the family. There's no heir. Mm-hmm. So he wants out. He wants to get rid of Catherine. He wants to get a divorce. But the problem is the Catholic Church says, no, you can't get a divorce. The other problem is Catherine, the wife, is also the Pope's, like, niece. So he's definitely like, no, leave Catherine alone. Like, we love her. Like, stop. So Henry asks the Pope to annul it, to get Catherine out. Pope says no. And so Henry actually creates his own church, so he's able to get a divorce. And that's passed in the Act of Supremacy. So King Henry VIII is now the new Pope, and he ends Roman Catholicism. And fun fact, even to this day, the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth, who's, around right now, she is also considered the head of the English Church.
Right.
So that stayed for hundreds and hundreds of years. This kills me. This is all I get to say about King Henry VIII.
Okay, so just wrapping up Henry VIII, Miss Hanovich and I are going to post a part 2 screencast about how people responded to this, how people responded to the Protestant Reformation, and we're going to post that in today's Google post as well. So please pick up with this on the second screencast, all right?
Woohoo! See you there!
See you there.